Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to Star Wars vs Warhammer 40K, short special, Defiance of Fate, made by AFanWithTooMuchTime. If you want to check out my previous reactions to the other episodes, remember the playlist card is going to be at the top here. Just click on it and you'll be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. Last episode was episode 24, Beyond Axum, and yeah, we've been dealing with different storylines in Beyond Axum. Episode 24, focusing on Padme, on Dr. Sheena, Bucket, and Count Dooku, and new characters that are coming into the storyline. You know, Boba Fett, as well as Caiaphas Kane. And yeah, a lot of activity is occurring, you know, beyond Axum currently. And you know, how will all of this relate to what's happening on Axum? I'm not entirely sure. Or maybe it's just, you know, a grander scope of how things are changing in the galaxy as a whole in terms of the war between, you know, Star Wars versus Warhammer. And yeah, it was interesting to find out that Count Dooku has decided to throw the separatist leadership under the bus, and you know what's going to result in something like that, we're not entirely sure. Padme also has the approval of the Senate to make Anakin Skywalker the supreme commander of the Galactic Republic forces, so that's also a very important thing to look out for. And Caiaphas Kane is trying to broker a deal with Jabba the Hutt. I'm not entirely sure what is it going to entail, but you know, they've been having some robust discussions, and yeah, can't wait to see the end result of that you know, discussion. Oh yes, and the chapter master of the Skywatch is also dealing with what are they called again? The Circle of Vigilance. Yes, the Warlocks in the Circle of Vigilance, and also we're gonna see what's gonna happen in that storyline. And Admiral Roller, yeah, she's having, you know, to realize or to accept that, you know, in the Star Wars galaxy, things have changed. Her plans and ambitions of what she wanted in the Warhammer galaxy no longer apply in this new one, and you know, she has to now adapt to that situation. Yeah, okay, let's continue with short special Defiance of Fate. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, it's in Defiance of Fate, not Defiance of Fate. Okay, sorry.
The two moved in artistry. One step countering the next, air-pounding concussions raining away from their blows and parries, each one a vain trumpet. Each one seeking to be the sound of victory, yet only sounding to call attention to the display. The librarian and the Jedi dueled ferociously, blade and stave casting shadows across light and spearing blinding eminence through otherwise still darkness.
The person speaking right now is not A fan with too much time. Yeah, I recognize his voice. So this one, whoever is here speaking, I don't know who you are, but welcome. And yeah, let's continue to listen.
Yet for all the glory and wonder of their conjoined skill, the pace of their dance was clear, and the song which made their rhythm was more and more rapidly singing one and only one man to victory. Saffron. But it did not yet play loudly enough to overcome Obi-Wan's ironclad discipline, which once more tore away such meanings from the sheen of his own thoughts, leaving his mind clear to continue the contest. The Jedi Master still fought to win, contending in order to strike him down and, if possible, strike him dead. But even the goal of his battle was fading from his conscious thoughts as he found himself sacrificing and dedicating all of his being to the contest before him. Body, soul, and thought, all were being consumed by the fire born of his fight, and his need to simply keep it lit. Obi-Wan was losing himself in the precise and lethal flow of combat, sinking further and further into the core of his guardian training, becoming the stone upon which the ocean must crash. In the center of this melee, deep within his zone, as it were, Kenobi had become one with his blade, and the lines between him and his environment had blurred nearly beyond recognition.
I like how he said, Obi-Wan has to be the stone that the ocean crashes on. But of course we know what happens, when water, especially rushing water, crashes on stone. Over time, it degrades, it breaks down, it cracks, it falls, it falters. So this is concerning. The fact that he said it that way, it's very concerning. That yes, Obi-Wan is this rock, right? But, giving time and with enough pressure and enough push from this ocean that is called Saffron, he will overcome him. And I'm still hoping Mace Windu and his team can get here as soon as possible, because they are still on the way, right? So hopefully they'll come here and help him out, because just one Jedi against Saffron is just not enough. No matter how strong Obi-Wan may be, in his type of fighting, abilities and skills, it's just not enough. Not right now. Yeah.
Against any foe of his past, he would have been triumphant, and perhaps easily so. But as the Jedi Master rallied himself against the foe he now faced, all he could sense was a sickening sense of growing clarity, for he was forced ever to be on the defensive, ever the stone and never the ocean, always the shield but too rarely the sword. It was not a pace he could keep up forever. Obi-Wan was performing feats he'd never attempted before, stringing new maneuvers into old techniques as the need arose, and yet he was countered every time. Not always easily, but effectively enough to give the Master a sense of his opponent's depth of experience. The Jedi Master came to an innate realization through this, coming to understand that even while he himself invented techniques and strategies that were new to himself, perhaps new to the entire Jedi Order, they were not new enough. How many times had this Astartes creature performed exterminations like this? No matter the answer, Kenobi now understood that it would be unbearably high, and were that his only issue, it still would have been a nearly overwhelming hurdle to overcome in the fight. But it was not. They were both matched in many ways, but Obi-Wan bore no strength-enhancing armor, had no force-repelling talismans, and could draw on only a fraction of the combat experience of his foe. Obi-Wan gave everything and more, but so too did this warrior who contended with him, who threatened all he stood to defend. Obi-Wan put all his decades of battle behind his blade, reliving his life in subconscious cycles, his soul studying his memory to writing every last possible lesson it could from it. In response, the librarian answered with his own centuries of warfare, and with his memory made perfect, he did not need to reach his edge to access the full breadth of his knowledge.
Must be really nice having photographic memory. What about the Jedi, who are still around then? I'm sure that some of them are healed and they're ready to fight again, so maybe they should also come in. Yeah. Because this is getting bad. I don't really like the way, the narrator is speaking right now, because it sounds as if Obi-Wan Kenobi is heading down a black hole, a singularity. He cannot escape. He is just slowly and surely just going down to the point of death. So I'm worried about him. He needs help.
The Jedi Master blocked a horizontal swipe, spinning like a dervish as he absorbed the force from it and struck, cleaving shadows with light, grunting, spraying sweat from his moist hair as he was brought up short by a sharp parry, bending back and avoiding one counter-strike, then parrying another. All the while, his mind also dueled, not against the towering form of the Astartes before him, or against the intrusions of his doubts and flaws, but against the slick, shark-like form of the librarian's own attacking mind. It drove for Kenobi, psychically assailing the Jedi in moments where even the slightest mistake or malign decision could spell disaster. Obi-Wan had thwarted each attempt thus far, and had even struck back with his own mental attacks. Yet even these small blows struggled to be called victories, even small ones, for the Space Marine had not been so much as required to personally address Kenobi's psychic counters, hiding his own vulnerable thoughts behind mind wards born of technical or ritual production, all of which were built directly into his armor. Obi-Wan found that psychically attacking was incredibly taxing and had left him far more vulnerable, forcing him to abandon the tactic and therefore ceding one battlefront to the Imperial. Yet in spite of that loss, clarity was his, and it did not lie. The flow of this battle was against the Jedi, and he soon found himself unable to do much more than fend the librarian off, waiting and watching for a mistake or flaw in his opponent's technique. Yet no matter how much he fought, no such chink in his armor seemed forthcoming.
Yeah, this is bad. Not only is Saffron attacking him physically, but mentally too. And Obi-Wan tried to do the same, but he is not successful. And now he's just hoping that Saffron makes a mistake. Yo.
Around them, the Jedi grew scarcer and scarcer, escaping or helped to escape by other Jedi as the two combatants did their dreadful battle. Yet in spite of the obvious danger, most of them fled more slowly than they should have, bogged down by the sights and sounds and senses before them. The display put on by the two vying adversaries was a feast to the warriors' eyes, and many could not help but take their taste while it lasted. Each swing of Saffron's stave rippled the air like roasting flames, the librarian using both hands to whip about with the broad head of his bewitched weapon. Across from him, Obi-Wan was a ceaseless spinning disk of blue energy, whirling over and then under and then over again. He avoided the first flurry of soul-smashing strikes before catching Saffron's flank with his blade and driving his body thrown by the force of the swing. The Jedi was sent away before landing and rebounding gracefully off a pillar and then the floor, shards of broken armor and the robes beneath trailing in his weightless wake. Obi-Wan had become transcendent. He had become grace. He was the definition of power. And yet he was also not enough. The librarian matched his speed, driving deep, molten footprints as he he tracked the Jedi's evasive legwork, mirroring the movements of the lithe Jedi. He shifted about and stepped as though the armor which enveloped him did not restrict or reduce his movement at all, and the sleight of it constantly threatened to cast an uncanny net of fear over any observer. Those knights who had lived by the saber and its forms drank in the displays with near rapt attention. For those Jedi more inclined towards the mysteries of the Force, this was no less fascinating a contest.
But guys, stop watching this and help. I don't know, do something. Do something. You know, use the Force. Try to hold Saffron away from Obi-Wan. You know, cheat, guys. I don't know. Just stop watching this happen and just try something. Because this is bad. This is really, really bad. We might actually lose Obi-Wan in this short special.
Psychic battle which waged between the two was nearly as impressive as the martial contest the warriors were simultaneously engaged in. Kenobi was a smooth sphere, leaving no purchase, no place to strike, and yet the Space Marine had formed a lance out of his imperially conditioned mind, striking dead center for Obi-Wan's soul again and again, testing the very limits of the Jedi Master's serenity. The other Jedi around them watched, and most would remember. Whether they carried themselves from that place or were carried by others, they would remember Kenobi's valiant stand and the strength of the monster which overcame him. Snap! He'd broken his left shin, snapped it completely in half. He could feel it, waving, flopping as he fell backwards and away, his fingers releasing his lightsaber, everything moving in a slow, agonized clarity. Agony coursed through Obi-Wan's mind, and though he shunted it aside, his balance was utterly lost. Impossible. He maintained his mental defenses, but he had lost control of his muscles, the pain signaling the failing of his left shin bones, leaving him falling, colliding hard with the ground. In spite of the pain, Obi-Wan was still calm, still collected. He was aware of the damage, but he was also still within the center of his serene mind, and he worked to remain there. What had happened? His mind answered him in a flash review of the last few milliseconds. He had taken the last parry too lightly, and the Space Marine had struck with more force than he had rightly anticipated. His stance had failed to compensate, and the force of the strike had pushed him beyond his body's limit. He blocked the falling strike of the stave wrongly, and the resulting force had broken his shin in half.
So, he was waiting for Saffron to make a mistake while he was the one making a mistake. Yikes.
It had been one mistake. Just one. But it was enough. The Space Marine paused, spinning his stave upright and letting its butt strike the ground. He loomed tall, triumphant, coming forward and rearing back a massive boot to stomp on Obi-Wan's legs.
Make sure it's quick, Saffron. I don't want to see him suffer. You know, if you're going to kill him, just kill him. Don't play around with your victory like this. Just make it quick.
Force of the blows shaking all present and rattling the deck. But Saffron could only growl in frustration as he surveyed his handiwork, or lack thereof. The Jedi was no longer prone beneath the dents under his boots. Another Jedi, a Xenos woman with dark skin and sporting bizarre head growths, had charged across the room towards them and slid past in the final moment, grabbing Kenobi by his robe and hauling him out from danger's closing jaws just as they slammed shut.
Finally, someone is doing something. Or maybe these are the reinforcements with Master Windu, right? Yeah, either it's the reinforcements or it's one of the Jedi who was spectating. But at least Obi-Wan will live to fight another day. Or he can still die right now. I don't know. Saffron is not giving up.
They skidded to a halt, barely controlled, both facing Saffron as they arrested their movement. This new woman crouched behind the beaten Jedi Master, arms wrapped protectively around his torso, eyes glowing Akkadian shade in the darkness of the orrery. Obi-Wan could feel Master Ali connecting with him even then, transferring her life force into him, mending his injuries and soothing his fatigue. But he knew that she would not be able to work quickly enough, a fact that became evident as Safran began to approach them. His boots cracked the floor as he came for the Jedi, only to pause a moment later when another form stepped between him and them. Yet another Jedi. The small, willowy form of the elderly Master Jocasta Nu revealed itself, saber active and poised to defend the members of her venerable order.
Swarming like maggots,
Safran cursed under his breath. His brows furrowed, betrayed his deep frustration. 2 more? How many psychers did this fiendish republic have to field? The Space Marine shook the unworthy thoughts from his mind, and instead focused on the force standing before and against him. The woman was obviously aged, straight back though she was. Her white robes were speckled in red, something Safran surmised was not the result of a striking, intentional aesthetic. A long, rectangular box was slung across the bony shoulders and back of the old master, held fast by a strap which clung to both ends of the box. She seemed an absurdly small figure in the shadow of the massive librarian, a detail which did not escape the warrior she now faced.
have I truly passed your order so forcefully that you are bringing old women out of retirement to slow me down?
Careful, Safran, careful. Do not underestimate this old lady. I thought maybe you would understand that right now, you know. You've been fighting against elderly people currently, you know, in your battles with the Jedi. So this should not be a joke. It should not be a surprise. Don't take this lightly.
It will avail you nothing but further humiliation,
Safran said, stepping forward and spinning his stave. Jocasta, in turn, raised a single, thin, gray eyebrow. A proper Jedi never truly retires. Besides, I have no intention of doing battle with the likes of you, she said, affecting a distinctly unimpressed air, wrinkling her nose at the Space Marine. Safran grinned his response, a vicious battle lust showing through the expression. He sped forward instead of speaking further, raising his stave high before swinging it downward, intent on hammering the old woman into the floor of the ship like an offensive, protruding nail. His strike, wreathed in psychic force, did little more than fan the air before Jocasta's face, burning some hairs in her eyebrows and little else. Safran's feet scraped and screeched against the metal ground, but not towards the Jedi woman, but away. He labored against the sudden pull, attempting with all his might to complete his final stride, swiping again at the elder before him and remaining just out of her range.
Back up.
From behind Safran, emerging from the cover of 2 pillars which held up the wide room, 2 more Jedi appeared, a dark-skinned human man with a purple blade in one hand, and a tall, bestial Xenos holding a glowing blue saber staff. Both had their free hands extended toward the epistolary, fingers curled as they held him just back from his lethal strike. Jocasta Nu broke her stance, face remaining a stern mask as she nodded in the direction of the 2 other masters. They, however, would be more than happy to sate your barbarity, the old woman said, the air of disdain about her as thick as water as she spoke, thrusting her own free hand forward and throwing a pillar of telekinetic might against Safran. That act succeeded in driving a roar of defiance from the warrior as he was suddenly pressed, holding his ground for only a few seconds before he was thrown backwards, falling toward the two Jedi Masters and their hungry, burning blades.
With our swords, we will forge new stories to strike the gods that haunt us. You might see me as weak, but I will show you what lies behind my eyes.
That voice, I know it's from that movie. Oh man, I just forgot the name right now. Gosh, Dune, right? Yeah. What do they call them? The Sebukar soldiers, the Emperor's own personal army. I forgot, man. Oh, but yes, I know that. I know that incantation or, you know, I don't know, like speech that character was just saying right there. Yeah, I remember it from the movie.
We will embrace our suffering, soothe our scars of grief, and break their siege of our minds. You may see them as gods. We will show you what lies behind their eyes.
Voiced by awesome fan Michael Wilson of the Predator 98 channel. Okay. Well done, Michael Wilson. It was quite good. Okay guys, that is it with Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K short special in Defiance of Fate. Like I said before, Obi-Wan Kenobi, really, he was doing his best. He had poured in all of his knowledge, his experience, his strength, his trust, and, you know, complete belief in the Force, you know, to fight against Sarafan, but it was just not enough, you know, like a ship trying to evade the gravitational pull of a black hole. You know, he really tried. He really tried, but slowly and surely he was just sinking further and deeper into the hole, you know, into the event horizon, and heading towards death. And even with what Michael Wilson was saying, that you know, when he was saying that Obi-Wan Kenobi was the rock that, you know, tried to stand against the crushing waves of the ocean. And yes, definitely, he really was a rock. But, you know, even a rock cannot stand against the crashing of waves for a considerable amount of time. You know, eventually it breaks down, and that's what happened here. Obi-Wan was looking for, you know, Sarafan to make mistakes. He was hoping that he would make mistakes, that he would, you know, just give him like a little opening, and with that opening he would have a chance. But it's in the reverse. Obi-Wan was the one who made the mistake. Obi-Wan was the one who gave that little chance for Sarafan to finally take an advantage and to crush his shins. So yeah, that was just terrible, really. But luckily the reinforcements have come in like I hoped they would. Mace Windu and his Jedi forces. But the other Jedi who were just spectating this, like, why are you doing that? You should be helping. Those who can still use the Force, please use the Force. You know, work together as unison. Try to pin him down, or try to push Sarafan back, or, you know, influence his staff to head a different direction instead of hitting Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, do something. Don't just sit there like you're watching television, or you're in a gladiatorial arena watching these two fight against each other. You know, Obi-Wan Kenobi needs that help. He needs that help. So yeah, luckily Mace Windu and the rest of the Jedi have come to their assistance. But still, is it enough? Is it really enough? I don't know. Honestly, I'm still worried that, you know, Sarafan is just going to overpower all of them. And, you know, Mace Windu is not really at full strength. He's still exhausted from fighting, you know, the other forces from the Warhammer 40K, you know, personnel on the ship. So he's still a bit exhausted, and so are all the other Jedi that were with him. And I just don't know if it's going to be enough against Sarafan. Wow. Guys, that is it for today with the short special. Thank you very much to Michael Wilson for, you know, contributing into this short special. It was quite really enjoyable to listen to your voice. It kind of sounded like a documentary, you know, like one of those History Channel or maybe National Geographic or Animal Planet documentaries. I don't know why, but it just felt that way. Really, it did really feel that way with your voice. But yeah, guys, remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you guys next week. Okay, bye bye.